After the divorce, my rich wife threw me out without a cent. I went to use the old card my mother had left me, but the banker turned pale and shouted, "Sir, quickly, look at this!" I was in shock when I discovered that the rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. I remember that detail because Elena kept complaining about it, how the weather was ruining her birthday week, how the gray skies made everything feel so dreary, how she couldn't wear the new Louboutins she'd bought because the streets were flooded. She said all of this while cutting into a $200 steak at Maria, her favorite restaurant in Central Park South, the one where the waiters knew her by name and always kept her preferred table by the window available. I wasn't eating. My plate sat untouched in front of me, the food growing cold while I watched her. Really watched her. The way she laughed too loudly at something her friend Marcus said over the phone. The way she didn't even glance at me when she finally hung up. The way her diamond earrings caught the candlelight. Earrings I'd given her for our 5th anniversary, back when I still believed we were building something together. "You're not eating," she said, finally noticing me. Her voice had that edge to it, the one that always appeared when I wasn't performing my role correctly. "Are you trying to make some kind of statement, David?" I wasn't. I was just tired. Tired of being the husband she paraded around at charity galas while whispering to her friends that I was decent enough considering. Tired of living in her penthouse, sleeping in her bed, wearing clothes purchased with her family's money. Tired of being reminded in 1,000 subtle and not so subtle ways that I was a guest in her life, not a partner. "I'm fine," I said quietly, "just not hungry." She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, like a teenager annoyed with a sergeant, and went back to her steak. The waiter appeared, asking if everything was satisfactory, and Elena launched into a detailed critique of the wine pairing. Using words I'd learned meant absolutely nothing, except that she enjoyed making service workers scramble. That's when I knew. Sitting there in that overpriced restaurant, watching my wife of 7 years treat a stranger with more attention than she'd given me in months, I knew our marriage was over. Had been over probably for longer than I wanted to admit. The question wasn't whether we'd end, it was when and how much of myself I'd lose in the process. I didn't have to wait long for the answer. We didn't speak in the car ride home. Elena scrolled through Instagram, double-tapping photos of people I'd never met, people from her world, the world of trust funds and summer homes in the Hamptons, of prep schools and country clubs where memberships cost more than most people earned in a year. I'd never quite fit into that world despite 7 years of trying. My mother used to tell me that love didn't care about bank accounts. She'd say it while we sat in our small apartment in Queens, her working double shifts as a nurse while I studied for the scholarship exams that would eventually get me into a decent college. She'd say it while we ate pasta for the 4th night in a row because that's what we could afford. She'd say it with such conviction that I believed her. She was wrong. Or maybe she was right, and what Elena and I had was never love at all. The penthouse was dark when we arrived. 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, the kind of view that makes tourists press their faces against glass barriers and dream. I used to stand at those windows and feel like I'd made it, like the kid from Queens had somehow cracked the code, married the princess, entered the castle. Now I just felt like an imposter waiting to be found out. "We need to talk," Elena said, kicking off her heels and walking to the bar. She poured herself a scotch, Macallan 25 because of course, without offering me one. Not that I wanted it. Here it comes, I thought. "This isn't working," she continued, her back still to me. "You know it isn't working." I did know. But hearing her say it out loud made something crack open in my chest, something I'd been keeping carefully sealed for months. "What do you want, Elena?" She turned then, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold clinical assessment, like she was evaluating a bad investment. "A divorce," she said simply. "A clean one, quick, no drama." The word hung in the air between us. Divorce. The end of everything we'd built, or everything I thought we were building while she'd apparently been planning her exit strategy. "Okay," I said, because what else was there to say? Her eyebrows lifted slightly. She'd expected a fight maybe, tears, begging. But I'd learned something in 7 years of marriage to Elena Whitmore. She always got what she wanted. Fighting only prolonged the inevitable and gave her ammunition to use against you later. Okay, she repeated. That's it? What do you want me to say? That I'll fight for a marriage you clearly checked out of months ago? That I'll make this difficult? I won't. If you want a divorce, we'll get a divorce. Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe, or disappointment that I wasn't giving her the scene she'd rehearsed for. Then it was gone, replaced by that same cool efficiency. Good. My lawyer will send over the papers tomorrow. You can have Harold look them over. Oh, wait. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. You can't afford Harold, can you? Well, I'm sure there are plenty of adequate attorneys who work for less. There it was. The knife slipped between the ribs so smoothly I almost didn't feel it at first. I'll find someone, I managed. She took a sip of her scotch, studying me over the rim of the glass. You should probably start packing. I'd like you out by the end of the week. The penthouse is in my name, obviously, as is, well, everything, really. My throat tightened. Everything? Did you contribute to the down payment, David? The mortgage? The renovations? Do you pay the maintenance fees? Each question was delivered with surgical precision. No, so yes, everything. I'd known this, of course, somewhere in the back of my mind. I'd always known that nothing in this life was actually mine. But knowing it theoretically and having it laid out in such stark terms were different things. I have some savings, I started. Do you? Her smile widened. That joint account we opened when we got married? I closed it this afternoon, transferred everything to my personal account. My lawyer says it's perfectly legal. It was my money funding it anyway. You're welcome to whatever's in your old checking account from before we met. I'm sure those, she paused, pretending to calculate. $700 will take you far. The room tilted slightly. $700. That's what 7 years of marriage had left me with. $700 and a closet full of designer clothes I'd never wanted, paid for with money that was never mine. Elena. Oh, and David? She set down her glass and walked toward the bedroom, pausing in the doorway. I'd appreciate it if you were gone by Monday morning. I have someone coming over for brunch, and it would be awkward if you were still here. Someone, not even a name, just someone. Someone who was probably already sleeping in our bed on the nights I worked late, someone she'd been planning this escape with, while I'd been naive enough to think we were just going through a rough patch. The bedroom door closed with a soft click. I stood there in the living room for a long time, staring at those windows I'd once loved, at the city spread out below like a glittering promise. From up here, New York looked beautiful, magical, like anything was possible. From where I was standing, it just looked cold. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Instead, I pulled out my old duffel bag, the one from college, worn and patched, shoved in the back of the closet behind garment bags of suits I'd never paid for, and started packing. It was amazing how little was actually mine. The clothes, hers, the watch, a gift from her parents. The laptop, purchased with her credit card. I found myself sorting through 7 years of my life and realizing I could fit what was truly mine into a single bag. Some old books, a few photos of my mother, the Columbia hoodie I'd worn so much in grad school that the letters were cracking, my phone, which I'd insisted on paying for myself, one of the few small rebellions I'd maintained. And there at the bottom of my drawer, buried under socks I'd never worn, my mother's card. I'd forgotten about it, honestly. She'd given it to me a week before she died, pressed it into my hand while she lay in that hospital bed, the cancer having eaten away everything except her determination to see me settled, cared for, safe. Promise me you'll keep this, she'd whispered, her voice thin as paper. Don't use it unless you absolutely have to. But keep it. Promise me, David. I'd promised, even though I didn't understand why. It was just an old bank card, worn smooth at the edges, the numbers barely visible. She'd never had much money. Nurses don't get rich, and a single mother raising a kid in New York even less so. I'd assumed whatever account it connected to held maybe a few $100s, if that. A small emergency fund she'd somehow kept hidden from her own dire emergencies. Now, sitting on the floor of a penthouse I was being evicted from, I turned the card over in my hands. The plastic was warm from being buried in the drawer. The bank's logo faded almost to nothing. Chase, I could just barely make out. An account number. My mother's name embossed in raised letters. Margaret Chen. She'd gone by her maiden name after my father left, kept it even after he died. Years later, as if erasing the name Sullivan from her identity could erase the pain of being abandoned with a 2-year-old and nothing else. I'd taken her name when I turned 18, legally changed it. David Sullivan died with the man who'd created him. David Chen was my mother's son, wholly and completely. Elena had hated that, insisted I should go back to Sullivan for professional reasons. That Chen made me sound too ethnic for the circles we moved in. I'd refused, one of the few times I'd stood firm against her will. My mother had given me everything. I'd be damned if I erased her from my name. I slipped the card into my wallet, though I wasn't sure why. Habit maybe, or sentimentality, or the desperate hope that my mother, somehow, had left me something that could help me survive the next few days until I figured out what came next. The sun was rising by the time I finished packing. Gray light filtered through those expensive windows, washing everything in shades of nothing. I could hear Elena in the bedroom, her alarm going off, the sound of her morning routine beginning, shower, skincare, the ritual of constructing the perfect Elena Whitmore that the world would see. I left before she came out, didn't say goodbye. What was there to say? The streets were still wet from the rain, but it had finally stopped. I walked for hours, my duffel bag over my shoulder, my phone dying slowly in my pocket because I hadn't thought to grab my charger, and it had probably been purchased with her money anyway. I'd called my friend Marcus, not her, Marcus, my Marcus, from grad school, and he'd said I could crash on his couch for a few days. Not long, he'd warned. His girlfriend was already annoyed about how small their apartment was. But a few days, enough time to figure out next steps, except there weren't many steps to figure out. I'd been working at Elena's family's investment firm, a cushy position I'd gotten not through merit, but through marriage. That would end with the divorce, obviously. I had no real savings. $700 might cover a week in a shitty motel if I was lucky. My credit cards were all connected to accounts she'd controlled. I didn't have a car. We'd sold mine years ago because it's ridiculous to have 2 cars in Manhattan, David, and mine is nicer anyway. I'd willingly dismantled my own independence piece by piece, thinking I was building a partnership. Thinking love meant merging everything, sharing everything, becoming a unit instead of 2 separate people. I'd been an idiot. By noon, I found myself standing outside a Chase Bank branch in Midtown. I don't know what made me walk in, desperation maybe, or the vague thought that I should at least see if my mother's account had anything in it before I started pawning what little I owned. The branch was nearly empty, just a few people at the ATMs and a banker sitting at one of the desks, scrolling through his phone with the look of someone bored beyond measure on a Saturday morning. I approached the ATM first, slid in my mother's card, waited for it to be rejected, to tell me the account was closed, expired, invalid. Instead, it asked for a PIN. I stood there staring at the screen, trying to remember. Had my mother ever told me? I entered her birthday. Invalid. My birthday. Invalid. One more try before the card would be locked. On impulse, I entered the date she'd given me the card. The day before she died. The screen changed. Account accepted. Would you like to check your balance? My hand trembled slightly as I pressed yes. The machine thought for a moment, and then, error. Please see a banker for assistance. Of course, the account probably had $12 in it, and the ATM couldn't even process something that pathetically small. I pulled out the card and walked to the desk, where the bored banker looked up with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news he'd delivered 1,000 times before. Can I help you? Yeah, I have this card from my mother. She passed away 6 years ago, and I'm just trying to see if there's anything in the account. I slid it across the desk, feeling like I was begging. Maybe I was. He picked it up, glanced at it, started to insert it into his computer with that same bored expression. And then his face changed. It was subtle at first, just a slight widening of the eyes, a pause in his movements. But then he looked at the screen, looked at the card, looked at me, and the blood literally drained from his face. "Sir," he said, his voice suddenly very different, very careful. Can you, can you wait here for just one moment? Is something wrong?" "No, no, not wrong. Just, please, wait here." He stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward, and then he was walking, almost running to the back offices, the card still in his hand. I watched him go, confused, a sick feeling building in my stomach. Had my mother done something illegal? Was this some kind of fraud? Was I about to be arrested for trying to access a dead woman's account? Minutes passed, long minutes. Other bankers started glancing my way, whispering to each other. A woman in a suit came out of the back office, looked at me, said something sharp to the first banker. I couldn't hear. And then they were both walking toward me, and the man's face was still pale, and the woman was carrying a folder, and "Mr. Chen," she said, and her voice was gentle in the way people's voices get when they're about to change your life. "I'm Rebecca Stein, the branch manager. Could you come with me, please, to somewhere more private?" The sick feeling intensified. "What's going on?" "Sir," the first banker said, and his voice was shaking slightly. "Please, you need to see this." They led me to a private office in the back, closing the door behind us. The manager sat down across from me, opened the folder, and pulled out a statement. "Mr. Chen, I need to verify your identity first. Can I see your driver's license?" I handed it over with shaking hands. She studied it, compared it to something on her computer screen, nodded. "It's you," she said quietly. "You're really you." "What are you talking about?" She slid the statement across the desk. I looked down at it, at the account number that matched my mother's card, at the name, Margaret Chen, primary account holder, David Chen, beneficiary upon death, and then I saw the balance. I stopped breathing. I had to be reading it wrong, had to be. That many zeros didn't exist in my mother's world. Couldn't exist. It was impossible. I couldn't even finish the sentence. $247 million, the manager said softly. Give or take a few $100,000. The account has been accruing interest for 6 years. Your mother set it up as a trust that would transfer to you automatically upon her death, but only if you used the card she gave you. Until you did, it remained dormant. $247 million. My mother, Margaret Chen, who'd worked double shifts and worried about grocery bills and died in a hospital bed wearing a nightgown I'd bought at Target because it was all I could afford. $247 million. There must be a mistake, I whispered. But Rebecca Stein was shaking her head, pulling out more papers, more documents I couldn't focus on because the number kept swimming in my vision. "No mistake, Mr. Chen, though I imagine you have questions about where this came from. Your mother left you something else." She pulled out an envelope, sealed, my name written on it in my mother's careful handwriting. She instructed that this be given to you when you access the account. Along with this, she slid across a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. A law firm in London I'd never heard of. They've been managing your mother's estate. Well, your estate now. There are significant holdings beyond this account. Properties, investments, a trust that's been growing for decades. They'll need to speak with you immediately to begin the transfer process. I couldn't speak, couldn't think, could barely breathe. "Mr. Chen," the manager said gently, "I know this is shocking, but sir, whoever you thought your mother was, whoever you thought you were, everything just changed." I looked down at the envelope in my hands, at my mother's handwriting, at the card with the London law firm's information, and I thought about Elena in her penthouse, celebrating my departure with someone whose name she couldn't even be bothered to mention. Everything just changed. I sat in that office for 20 minutes before I could move. The envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Just paper, just ink, but weighted with 6 years of questions I hadn't known to ask. Around me, the bank hummed with its usual Saturday rhythm, ATMs beeping, people shuffling papers, the soft murmur of transactions that meant everything and nothing to the people conducting them. But in this small room with its generic corporate art and its desk, that had probably witnessed 1,000 financial revelations. My entire reality was fragmenting like a mirror-struck dead center. $247 million. I kept trying to make the number feel real, to connect it to the woman who'd raised me in a 3-room apartment where we could hear the neighbors arguing through walls thin as wishes. The woman who'd clipped coupons religiously, who'd made a game out of seeing how cheaply we could eat each week, who'd cried, actually cried, when I got that full scholarship to Columbia because she'd been saving every penny she could spare, and now she could finally stop working herself to death. Except she hadn't stopped, had she? She'd kept working those double shifts right up until the cancer made it impossible. Kept living in that same apartment. Kept pretending we were barely scraping by while $247 million sat in an account I didn't know existed. Why? My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The letter inside was written on the same cheap notepad paper she'd always used, the kind you buy in bulk from the dollar store. Even now, even revealing whatever she was about to reveal, she'd stayed true to character. My mother, who'd apparently been sitting on a fortune that would make Elena's trust fund wealth look like pocket change, had written this final confession on paper that cost pennies. The handwriting was shaky. She'd been so sick by then, could barely hold a pen, but still recognizable. Still hers. My dearest David, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. It means you finally used the card I gave you, which means you've hit rock bottom, or close enough that you've remembered your mother's last gift. I'm sorry it had to be this way. I'm sorry for so many things. I lied to you your entire life. Not about loving you, never about that, but about everything else, about who I was, about who your father was, about why we lived the way we lived when we never had to. Your father wasn't Thomas Sullivan, the accountant who abandoned us when you were 2. That man existed, yes, and he did leave, but he wasn't your father. I let you believe it because it was easier than the truth, because the truth would have destroyed the childhood I wanted to give you. A normal childhood, one where you weren't defined by money or legacy or the weight of a name that would have consumed you. I stopped reading, my vision blurring. The walls of the office seemed to be closing in, the air growing thick and hard to breathe. Not my father, Thomas Sullivan, whose name I'd eventually rejected, whose abandonment had shaped so much of who I became, whose absence had taught me what kind of man I didn't want to be. He wasn't even real. Not in the way that mattered. I forced myself to keep reading. Your real father was Richard Chen, not Chen by marriage. That was my maiden name, yes, but it was also his family name. We were distantly related, third cousins, which is how we met at a family reunion when I was 23. He was 15 years older than me, already wealthy beyond imagination, already married to a woman his parents had chosen for him, already trapped in a life he never wanted. We fell in love anyway. It was stupid and reckless and wrong, and it was the most real thing I'd ever felt. He couldn't leave his wife, not without destroying his family's business empire, not without losing access to the children he already had, not without causing a scandal that would have ruined dozens of lives. So we existed in the margins, in stolen moments, in a secret that grew heavier with every passing year. And then I got pregnant with you. Richard wanted to leave his wife, then was ready to burn it all down. But I wouldn't let him. I'd seen what that life did to people, David. The money, the power, the way it twisted everything it touched, made people into symbols instead of human beings. I didn't want that for you. I didn't want you raised in that world, suffocated by expectations and duty and the constant weight of wealth you'd never asked for. So I left, took the name Sullivan from a man who'd briefly meant something to me, created a fiction about abandonment, and raised you as if we were poor, as if we were struggling, as if we were normal. But Richard made me promise, made me swear that I would keep the money safe for you, that when you were old enough, strong enough, when you'd become whoever you were going to become without the wealth defining you, you'd have access to everything. Not just his fortune, but the truth. My hands were shaking so badly now I could barely hold the paper. He died when you were 7. Heart attack. I went to his funeral and stood in the back, anonymous, watching his legitimate family grieve. His wife never knew about us, his other children, your half-siblings, never knew about you. His company went to them, his public legacy, all the things he'd built in the world that mattered to people who measure worth in headlines and stock prices. But his personal fortune, the wealth he'd accumulated separately, the investments in properties and accounts he'd kept private, all of that he left to you. Through trusts and holding companies and legal structures so complex it would take a team of lawyers to untangle them. All of it waiting for the day you'd need it. I wanted you to need it, David. I wanted you to live a real life first, to struggle and fail and succeed on your own merit, to know what it feels like to earn something, to build something, to be someone without money making every door fly open before you even knocked. I wanted you to be strong enough to handle what's coming, because this money, it's not a gift, sweetheart. It's a burden. It will change how people see you. It will make you question every relationship, every friendship, every kindness. It will attract parasites and predators and people who will smile to your face while calculating how to extract value from your existence. But I also know that by the time you're reading this, you've probably learned those lessons anyway. You've probably already experienced betrayal. You've probably already discovered that people can love the idea of you without loving you at all. You've probably already had your heart broken by someone who saw you as a means to an end. I thought of Elena, of 7 years spent being exactly that, a means to an end, though what end I'd never quite figured out. Legitimacy, maybe, the appearance of normalcy, something to parade around while she lived her real life elsewhere. So now you get to choose, my darling boy. You can take this money and build something beautiful with it, or you can let it destroy you the way it destroys so many people. You can use it to become the man I raised you to be, amplified, or you can let it turn you into someone I wouldn't recognize. The lawyers in London have all the details: property in 8 countries, investment portfolios that span industries I don't even understand, a trust that's been growing since before you were born. You're not just wealthy, David. You're dynasty-level wealthy. You're change-the-world wealthy if you want to be. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I'm not there to guide you through this. I'm sorry for all the nights we ate pasta and you went to bed thinking we couldn't afford better, when the truth was, I could have bought the entire building we lived in without blinking. But I'm not sorry for giving you a real childhood. I'm not sorry for teaching you the value of a dollar, the dignity of work, the importance of building yourself from the ground up. Those lessons will serve you better than any trust fund ever could. You're going to be angry with me. That's okay. Be angry. Rage at me if you need to. I'm dead. I can take it. But then, when the anger fades, I need you to do something for me. Be good, David. Be careful. Be smart. And be happy. God, please be happy. This money is your inheritance, yes, but it's also your revenge. Revenge against every person who ever underestimated you, who ever treated you as less than, whoever made you feel small. Not revenge through destruction. That's too easy, too crude. Revenge through success, through thriving, through building a life so magnificent that everyone who doubted you has to witness it. You don't owe anyone anything anymore, sweetheart. Not explanations, not apologies, not your presence in their lives. You're free. Use of that freedom well. All my love, always and forever, Mom. P.S. There's a safety deposit box at the London office. In it, you'll find photos of your father, of us together, of the life we had in secret. You deserve to know where you came from, even if I spent your whole childhood hiding it. P.P.S. I saw the woman you married. I died before the wedding, but I saw her picture, heard you talk about her. She's beautiful, David. Poised, elegant. Everything the world tells us we should want. But she doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved. I could tell even then, could hear it in your voice when you talked about her. A note of uncertainty, of trying to convince yourself. I hope I'm wrong. I hope by the time you read this, you've had a wonderful marriage, and I'm just a paranoid, dying woman projecting. But if I'm right, if she's hurt you the way I suspect she will, don't let her take anything from you that matters. Not your dignity, not your kindness, Not your belief that real love exists. It does exist, baby. It's just rare. And it never, ever uses money as a weapon. The letter ended there. I sat staring at it, reading and rereading those final lines, until the words blurred together and I couldn't tell if the wetness on my face was tears or sweat or some combination of both. My mother had known, had seen through Elena from hundreds of miles away, from a hospital bed, with nothing but my tone of voice to guide her, had known and had still said nothing, had trusted me to figure it out on my own, had left me this letter like a time bomb set to detonate at exactly the moment I'd need it most. She doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved. I thought about Elena's face last night, the coldness in it, the calculation, the way she'd smiled when she told me about closing our joint account, about how I'd be leaving with $700 and whatever dignity I could salvage. $700. I almost laughed. Would have laughed, except the sound that came out was closer to a sob. Mr. Chen? Rebecca Stein's voice pulled me back to the present. She was standing in the doorway, holding a bottle of water and wearing the expression of someone who'd witnessed this scene before, in different variations, with different people whose lives had just been detonated by the past. I'm sorry, I managed. I just need a minute. Take all the time you need, but Mr. Chen, the lawyers in London, they'll need to hear from you soon. There are time-sensitive matters related to the estate, properties that need management decisions, investments that require authorization, legal structures that have been in holding patterns waiting for you to claim them. I looked down at the business card she'd given me earlier. Whitmore and Associates, London, the firm that had been managing my inheritance for 6 years, waiting for me to materialize. Whitmore, the same last name as my soon-to-be ex-wife. The universe apparently had a sick sense of humor. What do I need to do? I asked. Call them. Today, if possible. They'll arrange for you to fly to London. First class, all expenses covered from your account. There's a team waiting to brief you on everything. The full extent of your holdings, the legal structures in place, the various entities your father created. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It's complicated, Mr. Chen. Dynasty-level wealth is always complicated. Dynasty-level wealth? The same phrase my mother had used. I thought about the penthouse I'd been evicted from, the one Elena was so proud of, the 23rd floor apartment that had seemed like the pinnacle of success. Thought about her family's wealth, old money from banking and real estate, the kind of fortune that bought influence and memberships and the right to look down on people like me. Dynasty-level wealth made that look like a rounding error. There's one more thing, Rebecca said quietly. She pulled out another folder, this one thicker. Your mother left very specific instructions about privacy. She set up multiple layers of protection to ensure that when you claimed the inheritance, you could do so anonymously. Shell corporations, trusts, legal barriers between your name and the money. If you want, and I strongly recommend you do, you can keep this completely private. No one needs to know who you are or what you have, not until you are ready to reveal it. Why would she do that? Rebecca smiled sadly. Because she was protecting you, Mr. Chen. From exactly the kind of people who'd come out of the woodwork if they knew. The distant relatives suddenly remembering family bonds. The investment opportunities that are too good to pass up. The charitable causes that desperately need your support. The romantic interests who find you fascinating for reasons they can't quite articulate. The romantic interests who'd throw you out with $700 and a smirk if they thought you were poor, but who'd cling like drowning swimmers if they knew the truth. So what do? You go to London, you learn about your inheritance, you make decisions about how you want to move forward, and in the meantime, she glanced toward the door, then back at me. In the meantime, you live your life as if nothing has changed. You don't tell anyone. You don't show any signs of sudden wealth. You let whatever's happening in your personal life play out naturally, without the money influencing anything. You mean my divorce? She didn't answer directly, but her expression said enough. I mean, whatever relationships you're in the middle of resolving, let them resolve on their own terms, Mr. Chen. Let people show you who they really are, without the variable of wealth confusing things. Let Elena show me who she really was. Except she already had, hadn't she? Last night in the penthouse with her casual cruelty and her talk of someone coming for brunch. This morning probably, rolling over in bed and feeling nothing but relief that I was gone. Okay, I said. Okay, I'll call London. I'll figure this out. Good. Rebecca stood, then paused. Mr. Chen, for what it's worth, your mother sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. She was. She'd been a nurse who worked herself to exhaustion while sitting on a fortune. She'd raised me to value things that mattered. Kindness, education, work ethic, integrity, instead of things that impress people. She died in a hospital bed wearing a Target nightgown while holding the keys to a kingdom she never told me existed. She'd lied to me my entire life, and somehow it was the most loving thing she could have done. I left the bank in a daze. The city looked different now, though nothing about it had actually changed. Same streets, same people rushing past with their coffee and their phones and their lives. Same noise encased in beautiful, brutal indifference. But I was different. I walked for blocks without direction, my mother's letter folded carefully in my pocket, the bank card heavy in my wallet, the London law firm's number saved in my phone. The duffel bag over my shoulder felt absurd now. All my worldly possessions, carefully packed, ready to move into Marcus's cramped apartment and figure out how to rebuild from nothing. Except it wasn't nothing. It was $247 million, give or take. Plus properties in 8 countries, plus investment portfolios, plus whatever else was waiting in London to be explained by lawyers who'd been managing my dynasty-level wealth while I'd been living in my wife's shadow. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. You close? Sarah's making lunch. Nothing fancy, but you're welcome to join. I stared at the message. Marcus and Sarah, who were letting me crash on their couch out of friendship and pity. Who had no idea that I could buy their entire building without making a dent in my account. Who were making me lunch. Nothing fancy, while trying to figure out how to gently tell me I couldn't stay long. I should tell them. Should tell someone. This secret felt like it was burning a hole through my chest, too big to contain. But Rebecca's words echoed. Let whatever's happening in your personal life play out naturally. Let people show you who they really are. And my mother's. You don't owe anyone anything anymore. Not explanations, not apologies, not your presence in their lives. I texted back, 30 minutes out. Thanks, man. Then I called the London number. A woman answered on the second ring, British accent, professional but warm. Whitmore and Associates, how may I direct your call? My name is David Chen. I was told to call about an estate matter. A pause, then, Mr. Chen, we've been waiting for you. Please hold for Mr. Whitmore. Another pause, longer this time. I kept walking, letting the city flow around me, thinking about how my life had been split into before and after without my permission. Before the bank, after the bank, before the letter, after the letter, before I knew who my father was, after I knew I'd never actually known him at all. Mr. Chen, the voice was male, older, cultured in that way British lawyers seem to have perfected. Alexander Whitmore, I had the privilege of knowing your father and the honor of serving as executor for your mother's wishes. I cannot tell you how pleased we are that you finally accessed the account. We were beginning to worry. Worried I'd never use it. Worried about what that would mean for you. Yes. Your mother was very specific. You were to receive nothing until you needed it. The fact that you needed it concerns me. I thought about Elena, about the penthouse, about $700 in a smirk. I'm fine, I lied. Forgive me, Mr. Chen, but I've been managing family fortunes for 40 years. No one accesses an emergency inheritance when they're fine. However, that's neither here nor there. What matters now is bringing you up to speed on your holdings and ensuring proper transfer of authority. How soon can you fly to London? I don't know. I need to... To what? I had nowhere to go, no job to request time off from, no obligations tying me anywhere. The divorce papers would come whether I was in New York or London. Elena didn't want me at the penthouse. Marcus's couch was a temporary solution at best. I had nothing keeping me here except momentum, the weight of routine, the illusion that my life still existed in the shape I'd built it. I can come Monday, I heard myself say. Excellent. I'll have my assistant arrange everything. Flights, accommodation, transportation, everything will be handled. Mr. Chen, I know this is overwhelming, but I promise you by the time you leave London, you'll understand not just your inheritance, but your father's vision for what you might do with it. Mr. Whitmore, yes? My mother, in her letter, she said my father wanted this money kept from me until I was strong enough to handle it. How did he know I'd ever be strong enough? A long pause. Then softly, he didn't, Mr. Chen. That was your mother's gamble. Your father wanted you to have everything immediately, full access from birth, your legacy secured regardless of character. It was Margaret who insisted otherwise. She believed that struggle creates strength, that hardship builds wisdom, that a fortune given too early destroys more lives than it saves. And if she was wrong, if I'd never used the card, then the money would have gone to various charities upon your death, with a letter explaining why. Your mother was willing to sacrifice your inheritance and her relationship with you, even posthumously, rather than risk you becoming the kind of person wealth creates too easily. The kind of person Elena was, he meant but didn't say, the kind who measured worth in zeros and treated people like accessories, beautiful and disposable. I'll see you Monday, Mr. Whitmore. Monday. And Mr. Chen, welcome to your new life. Try to enjoy it. He hung up. I stood on the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street, surrounded by thousands of people who had no idea that everything had just changed, watching the city pulse and breathe and continue forward like it always did. Somewhere uptown, Elena was probably still asleep, or maybe already entertaining her someone, celebrating her freedom from the burden of a husband who'd never quite measured up. Somewhere in my pocket, my mother's letter described a fortune that would make Elena's trust fund look like pocket change. And somewhere deep in my chest, something I'd thought was broken started to resemble something else entirely. Not quite hope, not yet, but possibility. The revenge of simply becoming who I'd always been. Only more so. Only amplified. Only free. Marcus's apartment smelled like garlic and burnt toast. I stood in the doorway of the 5th floor walk-up in Hell's Kitchen, my duffel bag still over my shoulder, and tried to reconcile the person I'd been when I left this morning with the person standing here now. Same clothes, same face in the reflection of their hallway mirror. Same David Chen who'd woken up in a penthouse and gone to sleep, or tried to, knowing he'd be homeless by Monday. Except nothing was the same at all. Dude, you look like hell, Marcus said, pulling me inside. Sarah's making grilled cheese. It's basically her only recipe, so prepare yourself for mediocrity. But it's food. He was trying to be cheerful, trying to make this less awkward than it was. Marcus had always been like that, the friend who showed up, who made room, who asked questions later. We'd met in grad school, bonded over being the scholarship kids in a sea of trust fund economists, stayed friends even after I'd married into the world we'd both resented. He'd never liked Elena, had been too polite to say it directly, but I'd seen it in his face at the wedding, in the way he gradually stopped inviting us to things, in how our friendship had winnowed down to occasional texts and the kind of surface-level catch-ups that mean you are not really friends anymore, just people who used to be. And now I was here, on his couch, pretending to be the person he thought I was. Thanks for this, I said, dropping my bag by the door. I know it's not ideal. It's fine, really. Sarah's a little stressed about the space, but she'll get over it. You're my boy. We take care of each other. He punched my shoulder lightly. That male affection that doesn't know how to express itself properly. So, you want to talk about it? Not really. Elena finally pulled the trigger? Something like that. He nodded, not pushing. Marcus understood the value of silence, of letting things breathe instead of forcing them into the open before they were ready. Sarah emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of sandwiches that were indeed slightly burnt. She was small and fierce, with the kind of energy that made their tiny apartment feel even smaller. I'd met her a handful of times, always at gatherings where Elena had dominated the conversation and Sarah had watched with barely concealed judgment. She'd never liked Elena either. I was starting to realize how many people hadn't. David, she said, not unkindly but not warmly either. Marcus said you needed a place to crash for a few days. Just a few days, I assured her. I'm figuring things out. Uh-huh. She set the plate down on their coffee table, which was also their dining table, which was also their workspace. Look, I'm going to be straight with you because that's who I am. You can stay here through the week. We've got Marcus's cousin coming Friday for a visit, so you'll need to be out by Thursday night. That gives you 5 days to find something more permanent. 5 days. In another timeline, the one from this morning, 5 days would have been a crisis. Nowhere near enough time to find an affordable apartment in New York, even a studio in the outer boroughs. Not with $700 and no job and a divorce in progress. In this timeline, I could buy this building before Thursday. Could buy the whole block. Could solve every one of their problems with a phone call. The thought made me feel sick and powerful in equal measure. 5 days works, I said. Thank you, both of you. We ate the sandwiches, which were exactly as mediocre as advertised. Marcus talked about his something in data analysis for a marketing firm, the kind of work we'd both sworn we'd never do back when we thought we'd change the world through economic policy. Sarah complained about her supervisor, about the tiny kitchen, about the landlord who kept promising to fix the water pressure and never did. Normal problems, small problems. The kind that consumed your entire world when you lived in 600 square feet and split rent 3 ways with your salary and your partner's salary, and the side hustle you pretended was a temporary thing but knew, deep down, was probably permanent. I listened and nodded and contributed nothing about my own situation. And the whole time I felt like a fraud, like I was playing a part in a show where everyone else thought it was real life. My phone buzzed. An email from Whitmore and Associates. Flight confirmation attached. British Airways first class, JFK to Heathrow, Monday 8 o'clock a.m. Car service will collect you at 5:30 a.m. from the address on file. Please confirm receipt. I stared at the screen. The address on file would be the penthouse, the one I'd been evicted from. I typed back quickly. Address has changed. We'll send updates shortly. Another buzz, almost immediate. Understood. Please provide current location at your earliest convenience. Accommodation in London has been arranged at the Connaught. Any preferences or requirements, please advise. The Connaught. I'd walked past it once, years ago, when Elena had dragged me to London for some charity thing her mother was involved in. We'd stayed at Claridge's, which had seemed impossibly luxurious at the time. The Connaught had been the place Elena had pointed to and said, that's where real wealth stays. Not people like us, people who've had it for centuries. People like my father, apparently. I set my phone down before Marcus could see the screen. You okay? He asked. You look weird. Just tired. Long day. Yeah, I bet. Divorce shit is exhausting. He leaned back, the couch groaning under his weight. So what's your plan? You still working at Elena's family firm? That's done, obviously. Right, fuck. So you need a job too. Yeah, it wasn't technically a lie. I did need a job, or at least the appearance of one. Needed something to tell people when they asked what I did. Needed a reason to be somewhere during the day. Needed the structure that kept people from asking too many questions. Unless I didn't. Unless I just disappeared into the money. Became one of those people whose occupation was managing their wealth, whose calendar was filled with investment meetings and portfolio reviews, and all the other euphemisms rich people use to avoid saying they didn't actually work. The thought made my skin crawl. I'd spent 7 years watching Elena and her circle do exactly that. Pretend their trust fund management was a career. Pretend their charity board positions were jobs. Pretend they'd earned anything they had. I wouldn't become that. Couldn't. My mother had raised me better, but I also couldn't stay here. Couldn't keep lying to Marcus and Sarah. Couldn't maintain the fiction that I was the person they thought I was. I'll figure it out, I said finally. I've got some leads. Another lie. They were stacking up, building a wall between who I was now and who everyone thought I'd always been. That night I lay on Marcus's couch, lumpy, too short, smelling faintly of the takeout they ate too often, and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet except for the sounds of the city filtering through thin walls. Sirens, voices, the constant hum of 8 million people living on top of each other. In the bedroom, I could hear Marcus and Sarah's muffled conversation, something about bills and whether they could afford to order in tomorrow or if they should finally learn to cook something besides grilled cheese. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, the one I used to check my personal account this morning, and confirm Elena's claim that I had $700 to my name. Then I added the new account, the one from my mother, the one the banker had helped me link before I'd left in a daze. The balance loaded slowly as if the app itself couldn't believe what it was seeing. 247, $384, 29.43. I watched the number, waiting for it to change, to reveal itself as a glitch, or a mistake, or a hallucination brought on by stress. But it just sat there, solid and real and impossible. More money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, even if I tried. I thought about Marcus in the next room, worried about whether they could afford Thai food. I thought about the water pressure that didn't work, the landlord who didn't care, the cousin coming Friday who would displace me because they literally didn't have room for both. I thought about how easy it would be to fix all of this. One phone call, one transfer, problem solved, friendship secured, gratitude eternal. But Rebecca Stein's warning echoed, let people show you who they really are without the variable of wealth confusing things. And my mother's, it will make you question every relationship, every friendship, every kindness. Marcus was my friend, had been my friend through grad school, through the early days with Elena, when I'd still been naive enough to think love conquered all, through the slow dissolution of our regular hangouts as my wife had gradually isolated me from everyone who remembered who I'd been before. He was helping me now because that's what friends did. Not because of what I had, but because of who he thought I was. If I told him, if I fixed his problems with my newfound fortune, I'd never know for sure. Never know if he'd have stayed my friend without it. Never know if the help was genuine or strategic. Never know if our relationship was real or just another transaction in a world that ran on them. I closed the banking app and opened my email instead. The message from Elena's lawyer had arrived while I'd been walking to Marcus's place. I'd seen the notification and ignored it, not ready to face whatever legal dissolution of our marriage looked like in stark black and white. Now lying in the dark, I forced myself to read it. Mr. Chen, please find attached the dissolution of marriage agreement for your review. As discussed with my client, this is intended to be a straightforward separation with minimal conflict. Key terms. All property acquired during the marriage remains with Mrs. Whitmore, including the primary residence, vacation properties, and jointly titled vehicles. All joint financial accounts have been closed, with assets returned to their original sources. Mrs. Whitmore. No alimony or spousal support in either direction. All personal property to be collected by you within 72 hours, or it will be donated to charity. A non-disparagement clause preventing either party from making negative public statements about the other. Mrs. Whitmore is prepared to sign immediately and hopes for your cooperation in expediting this matter. Please confirm receipt and indicate whether you'll be retaining counsel. Regards, Harold Chen, no relation. Senior partner, Morrison and Associates. Harold Chen, the lawyer Elena had mockingly mentioned I couldn't afford, who now revealed himself to share my last name in a coincidence that felt like the universe's idea of a joke. I read through the terms again, slowly this time. She was taking everything, every physical asset from 7 years of marriage. The apartment I'd lived in, the car I'd driven, the furniture I'd helped pick out, all of it legally hers because she'd paid for it, because I'd been too grateful to be loved by someone like her to insist on contributing, to maintain any independence. No alimony. That made sense. She didn't need my money, and I apparently had none to give. A clean break for her, a financial catastrophe for me, bums. Or it would have been, this morning. Now it was just insulting, petty, the kind of power play people made when they thought they held all the cards and you held none. A non-disparagement clause. That was interesting. That meant she was worried about what I might say, what stories I might tell, what truths I might reveal about our marriage. It meant she understood, on some level, that she'd behaved badly enough that she needed legal protection from the consequences. I should sign it, should take the easy way out, let her have her clean break and her clear conscience, and her certainty that she'd won. But something in me, something my mother had maybe known would be there when she designed this whole elaborate test, refused. Not yet. Not until Elena had shown me fully who she was, until this played out to its natural conclusion, until I understood exactly what 7 years of my life had meant to the woman who'd promised to love me forever. I drafted a response. Mr. Chen, I've received the dissolution agreement and am reviewing the terms. I'll need a few days to consider my options. I'm currently in the process of relocating and securing counsel. Regarding the 72-hour personal property deadline, I'll arrange to collect my belongings this week. Please inform Mrs. Whitmore that I'll be in touch to schedule a time. I'll respond to the broader agreement by end of week. David Chen, professional, calm, giving nothing away. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Sunday morning arrived with rain again, as if the weather had decided to match the general misery of my circumstances. Marcus and Sarah left early for some brunchy thing with friends, inviting me with the kind of forced enthusiasm that made it clear they hoped I'd decline. I did, claiming exhaustion, grateful for a few hours alone in the apartment. The moment the door closed behind them, I called London. Alexander Whitmore answered on the first ring. Mr. Chen, I hope you've had time to process yesterday's revelations. Process is a strong word. I'm still mostly in shock. Understandable. These matters take time. However, I do need to brief you on certain urgent issues before your arrival Monday. Do you have somewhere private to speak? I glanced around the empty apartment. Yes. Excellent. First, regarding your identity protection, your mother established several shell corporations and trusts to act as intermediaries between you and your assets. The primary entity is called Providence Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands. All property, investments, and accounts are technically owned by Providence, which is in turn controlled by a trust of which you are the sole beneficiary. Which means David Chen, the individual, appears to own nothing. David Chen, the trust beneficiary, controls everything. It's a legal distinction that provides enormous privacy protection. No one can trace your wealth back to you unless you explicitly choose to reveal it. My mother really thought this through. Your mother was extraordinarily thorough, Mr. Chen. She spent the last 5 years of her life working with us to ensure every detail was perfect. She anticipated scenarios we thought were paranoid, vengeful spouses, predatory relatives, opportunistic acquaintances. She wanted you protected from all of it. Vengeful spouses, like she'd known. Like she'd seen Elena for what she was and had built a fortress around me just in case. What else do I need to know? Your property portfolio includes residences in London, New York, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, Cape Town, Sao Paulo, and Dubai. Some are investment properties generating rental income. Others are personal residence, maintained but unoccupied, waiting for you. The New York property is a penthouse in Tribeca, significantly more valuable in private than anything in Midtown or the Upper East Side. A penthouse in Tribeca, probably 2 blocks from where I was sitting on a lumpy couch, pretending to be homeless. You mentioned urgent matters? Yes, several of your properties require immediate decisions about lease renewals or sale opportunities. There are also investment positions that need your authorization to proceed. Your father had started several ventures that were put on hold when he died, waiting for you to take over. And there's the matter of your position on various boards. Boards? Your father held seats on the boards of 6 major corporations. Upon his death, those positions were held in trust to be transferred to you when you claimed your inheritance. You're now legally entitled to those seats and the rather significant stipends that come with them. Several of the companies have been inquiring when you'll assume your responsibilities. Board positions at major corporations. Me, David Chen, who'd been working a mid-level position at his wife's family firm because he'd never quite managed to advance on his own merit. I don't know anything about running a corporation. You don't need to. Board members provide oversight and strategic guidance, not day-to-day management. And you have voting rights on major decisions. It's quite lucrative and requires relatively little time. A few meetings per quarter, some reading of reports. Many board members treat it as semi-retirement. How significant are the stipends? averaging 2 to 3 million per year per board seat, plus stock options. I did the math, 12 to 18 million per year just for showing up to meetings. That was more than Elena's entire trust fund generated annually. Mr. Chen, are you still there? Yeah, sorry, this is just a lot. It is, which is why Monday's meetings are so critical. We need to walk you through everything systematically, establish your priorities, create a management structure. You'll need a personal attorney, a financial advisor, a tax specialist, possibly a public relations consultant depending on how visible you want to be. I don't want to be visible at all. Understood. However, some visibility is inevitable once you take up your board positions. The business press will take note. Your father was relatively well known in certain circles. Not celebrity level, but respected. They'll be curious about his son finally emerging. His son, David Chen, heir to Richard Chen's fortune and legacy, a person who didn't exist until yesterday, who had no history in that world, no credentials, no network, a person Elena knew nothing about. Can I delay taking the board seats? A pause, You can, though I'd advise against it. The positions generate substantial income and provide legitimacy. They establish you as a serious person in the business world, not just a trust fund recipient. Your mother was quite insistent that you not become the latter. Right, because she'd spent my whole life teaching me that dignity came from work, from contribution, from building something rather than simply consuming. Even now, even from beyond the grave, she was guiding me away from becoming the thing I'd hated in Elena. Okay, I'll take the seats, but I need help. I can't just show up and pretend I know what I'm doing. Of course, we'll provide comprehensive briefing materials on each company, their industries, current challenges, and strategic opportunities. We'll also connect you with advisors who specialize in preparing new board members. You won't be unprepared, Mr. Chen. I promise you that. I heard the apartment door opening, Marcus and Sarah returning earlier than expected. I need to go, I said quickly. I'll see you Monday morning. Monday morning, the car will collect you at 5:30 a.m. Pack for a week, this will take time. He hung up. I shoved my phone in my pocket just as Marcus walked in, looking annoyed. Brunch place had an hour wait, he explained. Sarah's in the bathroom having a meltdown about it. I think she's stressed about you being here, to be honest. Not that it's your fault, just, small space, big feelings. I get it. I'll be out of here soon. You find a place? I'm working on it. Another lie, they were coming easier now, sliding off my tongue like a skill I'd practiced for years. The truth was in my pocket, a penthouse in Tribeca, probably empty, definitely mine, waiting for me to claim it. A life in London for the week, first-class flights and five-star hotels and lawyers who said Mr. Chen like it meant something. A fortune that would solve every problem Marcus and Sarah had, that would make this awkward housing situation disappear, that would prove I was still the friend who showed up, who helped, who cared. But I couldn't tell them. Not yet. Not until this thing with Elena played out. Not until I understood what my life looked like on the other side of this transformation. Not until I knew for certain who I could trust and who was just performing friendship while calculating their angle. So I sat on the lumpy couch and let Marcus complain about brunch wait times and pretended my biggest problem was finding an apartment I could afford with a job I didn't have. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard my mother's voice. This is the burden, David. Not the money itself, but the secret. The knowing that you could fix everything but choosing not to, because fixing it would ruin the only thing you were trying to save. The truth about who people really are. She'd been right about so much. I was starting to suspect she'd been right about this too. Monday morning came too early and too loud. Marcus's alarm went off at 6:02 a.m. A piercing electronic shriek that penetrated the thin bedroom door and dragged me out of the half-sleep I'd been pretending was rest. I heard him stumble to the bathroom. Heard Sarah groan something unintelligible. Heard the shower start and the pipes groan in protest. That water pressure problem they'd been complaining about. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling, calculating. My flight to London left at 8:00 a.m. The car service would have arrived at 5:30 a.m. to collect me from an address I'd never updated, probably sitting outside the penthouse right now with a driver checking his watch and wondering where I was. I'd need to text them, reroute to Marcus's address, explain the delay. Except I couldn't do that without Marcus asking questions. Couldn't have a black car service pull up to this building. Couldn't disappear for a week to London without explaining where I was going or how I was affording it. Couldn't maintain the fiction that I was a broke, jobless divorcee while simultaneously living like someone who just inherited a fortune. Because that's exactly what I was. I pulled out my phone and typed quickly to the number Whitmore and Associates had given me. Need to reschedule flight. Can we push to Tuesday morning? Same time? Something came up that needs handling today. The response came within seconds. Of course, Mr. Chen. I'll rearrange everything. Car service will collect you tomorrow at 5:30 a.m. Please confirm address. I sent Marcus's address, then added, discreet vehicle please, residential area, understood. Crisis averted, temporarily. But that still left the larger problem. I couldn't just vanish to London without Marcus asking questions, and I couldn't answer those questions without either lying more elaborately or revealing the truth I wasn't ready to reveal. The bathroom door opened, releasing a cloud of steam and Marcus in a towel. You're up early, he observed. Couldn't sleep. Yeah, that couch is brutal. Sorry, man. He disappeared into the bedroom to dress, calling back. You got plans today? Job hunting? Here was my opening. Actually, yeah. Got some leads to follow up on. Might be out most of the day. That's good. That's great. Where at? I hadn't thought that far ahead. A consulting firm, downtown, friend of a friend thing, you know how it goes. Right on. Hope it works out. He emerged dressed for his own job, looking tired in the way people do when they're juggling too much with too little. Listen, Sarah and I were talking last night. We want to help more, but the space thing is real. Her cousin's definitely coming Friday, and after that, I know, I'll be out by Thursday, promise. He looked relieved, then guilty about being relieved. It's not that we don't want to help. Marcus, I get it, really. You've already done more than I had any right to ask. He nodded, grabbed his bag, kissed Sarah goodbye. She was still in bed, pretending to sleep through this awkward conversation, and left. The moment the door closed, I texted the Whitmore and Associates number again. Change of plans. Can someone meet me in New York today instead? Need to access the Tribeca property and handle some personal matters before flying to London. The reply came fast. I'll have someone there by noon. The property manager can meet you at the building. Do you need anything prepared? Furnishings, provisions, etc. I looked around Marcus's apartment, the peeling paint, the cramped space, the couch that had destroyed my back. Yes, make it livable. I may need to stay there this week. Understood. I'll coordinate with the property management team. They'll have everything ready, just like that. Money made things happen, made problems dissolve, made the impossible become a simple matter of coordination and cost. I understood suddenly why people got addicted to this. Why Elena moved through the world expecting every inconvenience to evaporate, every desire to be instantly gratified. When you had enough money, reality itself became negotiable. The thought made me uncomfortable in ways I couldn't quite articulate. But first I had to deal with the penthouse, Elena's penthouse, the one where 7 years of my life still sat in a closet, waiting to be collected within the 72-hour deadline her lawyer had imposed. I texted her at 9:00 a.m., need to collect my things today. Will noon work? No response. I tried again at 9:30. Elena, the lawyer gave me 72 hours. I'm respecting your space, but I need access, please. Still nothing. At 10 a.m., her lawyer responded instead, Mrs. Whitmore will not be present. Building concierge has been notified to provide access. Please complete your collection by 2:00 p.m. Not even the courtesy of a direct response. Just her lawyer maintaining the buffer, keeping everything clinical and distant. Fine. I packed my duffel bag, still mostly empty since I'd barely unpacked at Marcus's, and headed uptown. The subway was crowded with Monday morning energy, people pressed together in that particularly New York way of being physically intimate with strangers while maintaining absolute psychological distance. I used to hate the subway. Elena had insisted we take cars everywhere. Ubers when she was feeling casual. Her driver when she wanted to feel important. She'd made fun of people who took public transportation, called it unnecessarily democratic. Like rubbing shoulders with regular New Yorkers was beneath her. Now, standing in a car packed with delivery workers and students and office drones, I felt more real than I had in years. These were people who worked for what they had, who counted dollars, who understood that time was money because they sold their time in hourly increments. These were people my mother had wanted me to understand, to be in the ways that mattered. The penthouse building looked exactly the same as it had Saturday night, imposing, expensive, dripping with the kind of luxury that whispered rather than shouted. The doorman I'd said good morning to 1,000 times looked through me like I was already a ghost. "I'm here to collect some belongings," I told him. "From 23B, the lawyer should have—" "Yes, sir. Mrs. Whitmore's attorney called. You have until 2 p.m. He handed me a temporary access key. "Please return this to the desk when you're finished." Mrs. Whitmore. Not Elena, not even your wife. The divorce wasn't final, wouldn't be for weeks, but in the doorman's eyes, I was already erased, already nobody. I took the elevator to the 23rd floor, my hands shaking slightly as the numbers climbed. The hallway was silent. It always was, insulated by money and architecture from the chaos of the city below. The key worked. The door swung open. The apartment had been cleaned. Professionally, thoroughly, like they were erasing evidence of a crime. The surfaces gleamed. The air smelled of expensive lemon polish and something floral. Fresh flowers sat in the vase by the window. White orchids, Elena's favorite. Definitely not there Saturday night. She'd already moved on. Already begun the process of erasing me from this space, from her life, from her story. I walked through rooms I'd lived in for 7 years and felt like a stranger. The furniture was the same, but it looked different somehow, more like a magazine spread than a home. Had it always been like this, or had I just stopped noticing at some point, stopped seeing the carefully curated perfection that left no room for actual living? The bedroom was where it hit me hardest. Our bed, her bed, I had to remind myself, was perfectly made. New sheets, I noticed. White instead of the blue ones we'd had. The photos that had sat on the nightstand were gone. My nightstand was completely empty, cleared of the books and glasses and random accumulated debris of shared sleeping space. On my pillow sat an envelope. I recognized Elena's handwriting on the front. David. My hands shook as I opened it. "David, I'm not good at confrontation, so I'm doing this in writing. Cowardly, I know, but honest at least. Our marriage is over, has been over for a long time. If I'm being truthful with myself, we both know it. We've been performing for months, maybe years, going through motions, pretending we're something we're not. I don't hate you. I want you to know that. You're a good person, kind, smart, everything my mother said I should want in a husband. But good isn't enough. Kind isn't enough. I need more than nice dinners and comfortable silences in someone who fits the picture. I need someone who excites me, who challenges me, who makes me feel alive instead of just settled. You deserve that too, even if you don't realize it yet. You deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not who they're trying to make you into. I tried to make you into someone you're not, someone comfortable in my world, someone who could keep up with my friends, someone who wanted the life I wanted. It wasn't fair to either of us. The prenup was always about protecting my family's assets, not about not trusting you. But I'm not going to pretend it doesn't make this easier. You get a clean break. I get on a clean break. No alimony, no fights about money, no dragging this out in court while lawyers get rich and we both get bitter. Take your things. Take whatever matters to you. The rest is just stuff, and I have plenty of stuff. I'm sorry it ended this way. I'm sorry I wasted 7 years of your life. I'm sorry I couldn't be who you needed, and that you couldn't be who I needed. But I'm not sorry for the good parts. There were good parts, David. Remember those if you can. Be well. I read it twice, then a third time. It was honest. I had to give her that. Brutally, casually honest in the way people can be when they're already emotionally checked out and just want permission to stop pretending. She didn't hate me. She just didn't love me, didn't want me, didn't find me exciting or challenging or alive enough. I was too kind, too good, too comfortable. And the prenup that had protected her family's assets, the one I'd signed without really reading because I'd been too in love to imagine needing protection from the person I was marrying, made everything easy, made me disposable without complication. Take your things. I looked around the bedroom at the life we'd built, the closet full of clothes she'd bought me, the watch she'd given me, the cufflinks from various anniversaries and birthdays, the leather toiletry bag, the expensive shoes, the suits tailored to fit me perfectly. All of it purchased with her money. All of it chosen by her for her version of who she wanted me to be. None of it mine in any real sense. I pulled my old duffel bag off my shoulder and started packing what actually belonged to me. The Columbia hoodie I'd hidden in the back of the closet, a few t-shirts I'd bought myself, some jeans, my old running shoes worn through at the heels, the photo of my mother I'd kept on my dresser until Elena had suggested it was too depressing for the bedroom and I'd moved it to a drawer. The watch could stay, the suits could stay. All the expensive performance costumes she'd dressed me in could stay. I took my mother's photo, my old books, Piketty and Stiglitz and Sen, the economists who'd shaped my understanding of inequality before I'd married into the 1%. My notebook from grad school, full of ideas I'd once had about policy and change and making the world more fair. When I was done, my duffel was half full. 7 years of marriage fit in half a duffel bag. I walked through the apartment one more time, saying goodbye to nothing in particular. The kitchen where we'd barely cooked. The living room where we'd entertained her friends and I'd felt like a prop in her performance. The study where I'd worked remotely while she'd done whatever she did during the days, which I'd never quite figured out. And then I saw it, on the coffee table, partially hidden under a fashion magazine. Another phone, not Elena's primary phone. She was surgically attached to that one. A second phone, the kind people have when they're conducting business they don't want traced, or conversations they don't want discovered. I picked it up. It was unlocked. She'd either forgotten to secure it or hadn't expected me to find it. The messages loaded, my stomach turned. Marcus, not my Marcus, her Marcus. Saturday, 11:43 p.m. He's gone. Finally, I thought he'd make it more difficult. Elena, Saturday, 11:45 p.m. He was always easy to handle, too grateful to put up a fight. Marcus, Saturday, 11:47 p.m. When can I come over? Elena, Saturday, 11:48 p.m. Now, I sent the staff away. Bring champagne, we're celebrating. I scrolled up. Weeks of messages, months maybe, planning the divorce, strategizing how to minimize what I could take, laughing about how I'd been completely clueless, that she'd been seeing someone else. And then, from 3 months ago, Marcus, are you sure about the joint account thing? Seems harsh. Elena, he never contributed to it anyway. It's my money. He's just been living off me like a leech for 7 years. I'm taking back what's mine. Marcus, I guess, still feels cold. Elena, that's business, baby. Emotions are for people who can't afford lawyers. I took a photo of the screen, then another, and another. Every message that showed premeditation, showed the affair, showed exactly who Elena Whitmore really was when she thought no one was watching. The non-disparagement clause in the divorce agreement suddenly made a lot more sense. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, returned to the bedroom, grabbed my half-full duffel bag, and walked out. At the door, I paused, looked back at the penthouse one last time, the gleaming surfaces, the perfect furniture, the white orchids that had replaced me so seamlessly. Good riddance, I thought, and I meant it. The Tribeca property was everything the uptown penthouse wasn't. The building was understated, converted factory, red brick, the kind of place that whispered wealth instead of screaming it. The lobby was industrial chic, all exposed beams and polished concrete, with a single desk where a woman in her 40s sat reading a tablet. Mr. Chen, she said, standing as I approached. Not a question. She'd been expecting me. I'm Patricia Walsh, the building manager. Welcome home. Home. The word felt strange. Thank you. Mr. Whitmore's team called this morning. We've had the unit fully prepared, linens, provisions, everything you should need for an extended stay. There's also a welcome packet with building information, local service, and contact numbers for anything you might require. She handed me a key card and what looked like a tablet. The unit is fully smart, climate, lighting, security, everything controlled through the app. I've programmed your preferences based on what the London office provided. What preferences? They don't know. From your mother's notes, Mr. Chen. She was very thorough. Of course she was. Even dead, my mother was taking care of me. We took the elevator to the top floor. The penthouse, naturally, because apparently I was a penthouse person now, whether I liked it or not. The doors opened directly into the apartment. I stepped inside and stopped breathing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The space was open concept, but warm somehow. Exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, furniture that looked comfortable instead of just expensive. There were bookshelves, actually full of books. Art on the walls that looked like someone had chosen it for beauty rather than investment value. It looked like a home. Your mother designed it, Patricia said softly. Years ago when she bought the property, she said it should feel like you, who you really were, not who you might pretend to be. My throat tightened. She never lived here? No, she visited a few times during construction to oversee the details, but she never stayed. She said it wasn't for her. It was for you, for when you needed it. I walked through the space in a daze. The kitchen had a coffee maker, my preferred brand, the one Elena had made fun of as pedestrian. The bathroom had the same cheap shampoo I'd used in college, the kind I'd stopped buying when Elena had stocked our bathroom with $100 bottles of product I couldn't pronounce. In the bedroom, on the nightstand, sat a framed photo I'd never seen before. My mother and a man I didn't recognize, younger versions of themselves, laughing at something beyond the camera's view. They were standing in front of what looked like a Chinese restaurant, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his chest. Richard Chen, my father, the man I'd never met, never known existed until 3 days ago. He looked happy. They both did. I picked up the frame, studying their faces. He had my eyes, or I had his, I supposed. My mother's smile was different in this photo than any smile I'd seen in person. Unguarded, genuine, lit from within by something that had nothing to do with putting on a brave face for her son. This was what she'd given up. This happiness, this love, this man who'd made her laugh like that. For me, to give me a normal childhood, to protect me from the burden of wealth, to let me become whoever I was going to become without the weight of dynasty crushing me. I set the photo down gently and walked to the windows. The city spread out below looked different from this angle. Not the tourist view I'd had uptown, all glitter and performance. This was the working city, the piers, the warehouses being converted to luxury spaces, the river that had once meant commerce and now meant views for people who could afford them. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. How'd the interview go? When will you hear back? Right, my fictional consulting job interview. Went well, I typed back. They want me to do a trial project this week. Might need to stay elsewhere for a few days. Don't want to disturb you guys with my schedule. Not technically a lie. I did have a project, learning to be David Chen, heir to a fortune, board member, person of consequence. And I would be staying elsewhere. That's great news, man. Where will you crash? Friend's place downtown? Sublet situation. I'll explain later. Another lie. They were piling up, building a wall between my old life and my new one, between who Marcus thought I was and who I was becoming. Patricia appeared with the welcome packet. Is there anything else you need, Mr. Chen? No, this is perfect. Thank you. She smiled. Your mother loved you very much. We all knew that, everyone who worked on this project. She talked about you constantly. What you liked, what you needed, what would make you happy. She wanted this space to be a refuge, not just a property. She succeeded. Patricia left me alone in the apartment, my apartment. I had to keep reminding myself. I walked through the rooms again, slower this time, taking in the details. Books on the shelves I'd mentioned loving and passing conversations with my mother years ago. A coffee table that was the right height for someone my size to work at comfortably. A desk positioned to catch the afternoon light, with a view that inspired rather than distracted. Every detail chosen with care. Every element designed around the person I actually was, not the person someone wanted me to be. Elena's penthouse had been a stage set. This was a home. I sat on the couch, comfortable, perfect, exactly right, and pulled out the photos I'd taken of Elena's secret phone. The affair, the planning, the calculated cruelty of someone who'd decided I was a leech, a burden, a 7-year mistake to be corrected with maximum efficiency and minimum cost. Emotions are for people who can't afford lawyers. I thought about my mother's letter. This money is your inheritance, yes, but it's also your revenge. Not revenge through destruction, that's too easy. Revenge through success, through thriving, through building a life so magnificent that everyone who doubted you has to witness it. Elena had no idea what was coming, had no idea who I was now, what I had access to, what I was becoming. She thought she'd won, thought she'd cast off the dead weight, upgraded to someone more exciting, freed herself from the burden of a husband who'd never quite been enough. She thought I'd be scrambling for apartments I couldn't afford, jobs I was lucky to get, a life rebuilt from scraps. She had no idea I was sitting in a penthouse worth 10 times what hers was, with access to resources that made her family's wealth look like a rounding error, with lawyers in London waiting to brief me on my dynasty-level fortune. She'd played her hand completely. Now it was my turn to play mine. But not yet. Not until London. Not until I understood the full scope of what I had, what I could do, who I was becoming. Let her celebrate with Marcus. Let her think she'd gotten away clean. Let her sign the divorce papers and move on with her exciting new life. The truth would find her eventually. And when it did, I'd make sure every word of her non-disparagement clause was worth its weight in gold. Because I wouldn't need to say anything at all. The truth would speak for itself. Tuesday morning, 5:15 a.m. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Tribeca penthouse, watching the city wake up in shades of gray and gold. Across the river, the lights of Jersey City flickered like distant stars. Below, early joggers traced paths along the waterfront, their breath visible in the October cold. I'd barely slept, had spent most of the night sitting on the couch my mother had chosen, reading through the documents Whitmore and Associates had sent. Property portfolios, investment summaries, corporate board information, legal structures so complex they required glossaries to understand. My phone showed 5:17 a.m. The car would arrive in 13 minutes. I'd packed differently this time. Not the old duffel bag, that felt wrong somehow, like clinging to a version of myself that no longer existed. Instead, I'd found luggage in the apartment's storage closet, expensive leather pieces monogrammed with my initials in subtle stitching. My mother had thought of everything, including the baggage I'd need when I finally stepped into the life she'd been preparing for me. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Car is downstairs, Mr. Chen. Take your time." I took one last look around the apartment, at the bookshelves and the comfortable furniture, and the photo of my parents laughing in front of a restaurant, at the space that had been waiting for me for 6 years, maintained and prepared and kept ready for the moment I'd need it. "Thank you, Mom," I whispered to the empty room. Then I grabbed my bag and left. The car was exactly what I'd requested. Discreet. A black sedan, unmarked, the kind that could have been an Uber or a private car or anything else. No ostentatious display, no screaming wealth. The driver was a woman in her 50s, professional but not stiff. "Good morning, Mr. Chen. I'm Caroline. I'll be taking you to JFK." "Thank you, Caroline." She took my bag, loaded it efficiently, and within minutes we were moving through the empty streets of pre-dawn Manhattan. The city looked different at this hour. Quieter, more honest, stripped of the performance it wore during daylight hours. "First time flying first class?" Caroline asked after a while. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled in the rearview mirror on. "You keep checking your ticket on your phone. People who fly first regularly don't do that. They know it'll be there." I laughed, embarrassed. "Yeah, first time." It's nice, you'll enjoy it. British Airways does it right. Lie flat seats, actual food, people who leave you alone if you want to be left alone. That last part sounds perfect. We drove in comfortable silence for a while. The sunrise was beginning now, painting the sky in colors that made the city look almost beautiful, almost forgivable. My phone buzzed. Elena's lawyer. Mrs. Whitmore has signed the divorce papers. Please review and return your signature by end of week to expedite the process. She'd signed, already. We'd been married 7 years and she'd signed away the whole thing in less than 72 hours. I should have felt something, pain, anger, loss. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of being the person she'd wanted me to be. Tired of performing gratitude for being allowed into her world. Tired of making myself smaller so she could feel bigger. I didn't respond to the message. Let them wait. Bad news? Carolyn asked, watching me in the mirror. Just the end of something that should have ended a long time ago. She nodded, understanding in a way that suggested she'd been there herself. Those are always the hardest endings. Not because you're losing something good, but because you're mourning all the time you wasted trying to make something work that was broken from the start. Yeah, exactly that. Well, wherever you're going, I hope it's better than where you've been. London, a city I'd visited once where I'd felt like a tourist in my wife's world, gawking at buildings and history while she'd glided through it all with the ease of someone who belonged. Now I was going back as someone different, someone with property there, with lawyers waiting, with a father's legacy to claim and a life to figure out. Me too, I said. JFK at 6:00 a.m. was a study in controlled chaos. Business travelers moving with grim efficiency, families wrangling children and luggage, the eternal hum of announcements and rolling wheels, and people going somewhere, anywhere, away from wherever they'd been. Caroline pulled up to the British Airways terminal. Have a good flight, Mr. Chen. And whatever you're running from, let it stay behind you. Whatever you're running toward, let it be worth it. How do you know I'm running? She smiled. Everyone who takes a 5:30 a.m. car to catch an international flight is running from something. The question is whether they're running towards something better or just running. I thought about that as I walked through the terminal. Was I running? Or was I finally moving forward after years of standing still? The first-class check-in had no line. The agent took my passport, looked at her screen, and her entire demeanor changed. Mr. Chen, welcome. You're all set. We've upgraded you to our new first-class suite at no additional charge. You'll board through the expedited security line, and the Concorde Lounge is available if you'd like to wait there. The what? The Concorde Lounge. For our premium passengers. Complimentary breakfast, showers, quiet workspace, whatever you need. Premium passengers. That's what I was now. Not a guy grateful to be flying at all, but someone airlines upgraded without being asked. Someone lounges were available to, someone the system recognized as mattering. It felt wrong and right in equal measure. The lounge was exactly what you'd expect. Leather chairs, abundant power outlets, a breakfast spread that could have fed a small village. A few other travelers scattered throughout, all of them carrying themselves with that particular confidence that comes from never having worried about money. I loaded a plate with food I didn't particularly want and found a corner seat away from everyone. Pulled out my phone and started reading through the briefing documents Whitmore and Associates had sent. Chen Family Holdings, overview. Total estimated value, $2 billion USD as of current fiscal quarter. Primary components, liquid assets, gross on securities. 247 mm, real estate portfolio, 340 mm, corporate holdings and investments, 520 mm, art and collectibles, only 93 m, $1 billion. Not 247 million like the banker had said. That was just the liquid cash. The full portfolio was $1 billion. I read the number 3 times trying to make it feel real. Failing. The real estate section was particularly overwhelming. London, 5-bedroom penthouse, Mayfair. So value 45 some. New York, Tribeca penthouse, 4-bedroom, Independent value 38 arms. Paris. Historic apartment, 6th arrondissement, independent value 22 Tokyo, modern residence. Shibuya, independent value 118. Sydney, waterfront home. Point Piper, independent value 28 million. Cape Town, Villa Clifton, independent value 25. São Paulo, penthouse, Jardines, independent value 8 million. Dubai, apartment, Burj Khalifa, independent value 15 million. Additional investment properties generating rental income, 23 units across various markets. Total independent value 154 million. I owned property on 4 continents. Had homes in cities I'd barely heard of, let alone visited. The apartment in Paris alone was worth more than most people would earn